Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Adam Braun, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome a truly extraordinary guest to join us for our Sustainability Leader Series, the one and only Sophia Mendelsohn. My role at Climate Club is co-founder and CEO. For those that are or not familiar with Climate Club, we are a company that has built a platform that works with today's leading enterprises to really drive sustainability and business outcomes across teams, departments, and really into the employee experience. And I'm incredibly, again, excited to engage in a fantastic conversation today that we're really viewing as ultimately a masterclass from someone who has been a two-time Chief Sustainability Officer at some of the most impactful and recognized companies in the world. So Sophia, I'll allow you to kick things off by introducing yourself, and then we can go into a real moderated discussion.
Well, thank you, Adam, and hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us, for your time today. I certainly could not beat Adam's introduction of myself, so I'll only add on that one of the great things about having been in the sustainability role for quite some time and being a Chief Sustainability Officer for quite some time is seeing how things are in a constant state of flux. They're always changing, and so much of the new energy, talent, and focus in this space is really what we'll see as Sustainability 2.0. To credential myself, I've worked internationally, Australia, China, multiple countries in Latin America, and of course in the United States. I've worked in aviation, and now I'm in software. I subscribe to the philosophy that you can apply sustainability to any industry, especially the industries that might be the slowest to change or have the most environmental footprint. I'm really excited to talk to you guys. I have some things to say, but I also really want to know what you have to say and what you have to ask of me. So I hope you're getting the Q&As ready as well. And then, back over to you, Adam.
Fantastic. Well, as Sophia alluded to, if you have questions, we'll save some time at the end to feature audience questions. So please include those in the Q&A section. But just really to kick things off, the intention of this webinar is to bring learnings and actionable steps to those who are watching. Let's start with those that are earlier in their journey or perhaps mid-career, but looking to transition into a sustainability role. What are the foundational skills and areas of knowledge that you would encourage those folks to gain first?
Yeah, so I always think of this in two sections, and I'll start with the technical, and then we'll go to the mindset section. So under the technical, there are three things. One, get comfortable with science. A certain amount of climate science, atmospheric science, as well as biodiversity. You need to know more than the New York Times article talking about why it's raining so hard in California. There are a number of ways to do that. There are online classes at all the major universities right now. You don't have to go for a full master's, certainly not a PhD. You can do these through certificates or online classes. You can follow folks like myself on LinkedIn, see who we follow. There's an incredible community pumping out technical information. I know Adam and Climate Club are also very connected to that. It's on their feed as well. The second, just as technical, but in a completely different direction, audit. Data and audit. I am talking like good old accounting and financial auditing. Get comfortable with financial disclosures. Most of you probably work for a public company, and even if you work for a private company, you're still going to have some kind of disclosure. Take the time to learn about what the major filings are. Even if you're at a startup, maybe your dream is to IPO one day. Know what the 10K is. Know what the annual report is. Know what the Q is, because that's the level of rigor your investors are used to seeing in data, dollars, and reporting, and that's what you're going to want to bring to your work. That's before you even get to the fact that regulation is putting all this information in those very filings. That means knowing who PwC and Ernst & Young are, knowing what a control is, knowing what a controlled environment for your carbon footprint is. Again, lots of amazing learnings, lots of free webinars, lots of social media talk on that if you're looking to get educated. And I'd say the third technical thing is a little trickier. It's investor relations, right? And there's there's no free webinar on that. But what investor relations really is talking to your investors, the people who have trusted you with your money, about how you're going to help drive financial value through your sustainability program. It's an art, not a science. There's a lot of writing and reading on it. So I encourage you to think about that. With the technical stuff out of the way, I'll turn to the soft stuff. And that's certainly where my heart, no pun intended, is. And say the first is patience, right? Just because you're there mentally doesn't mean others are. The second is listening, right? You have to listen to other people who don't care about this topic as much as you, because they're paid to care about a different topic. They're measured through different KPIs, which brings me to humility. We're so incredibly lucky to be passionate about this topic, to be paid to work in it even. Not everyone is, right? And finally, tenacity. If you think this is gonna be fun, it's not. It's gonna be really, really hard. But if you're tenacious and if your strategy is right, you will never get up and you give up, and you will have, with everything I mentioned, all the skills and tools you need.
Fantastic. So Sophia, you were the first Chief Sustainability Officer at JetBlue, and you were brought into Cognizant as Chief Sustainability Officer and Global Head of ESG to drive sustainability throughout the organization. How has the CSO role evolved over the past decade since you first took on that position?
Yeah, I mean, even since I first took on the position, since you call this a Masterclass, let me give you and the folks on the line the full timeline, right? So this really starts as environmental health and safety. What you absolutely need to do to not break the local environmental laws and keep people from getting injured or God forbid, worse. Right? And then that involves into what some people still call corporate social responsibility, this idea that the corporate entity has a need to give back. That could be as traditional as philanthropy or some of the more complex thematic social work we see today. From there, you finally get to sustainability. But that version of sustainability is still really focused on the company's impact on the environment, the effect you are putting on the planet. What's been so exciting about the evolutions lately is now we still have all that, but we're adding on more. The things that have changed most recently are, one, physical climate risk, natural capital risk. So the climate's fighting back. You know, it's playing out the consequences of the chemical reactions we've started. And that has a true material effect in some cases on your supply chain. So now you're thinking about the reverse climate impact or environmental impact, because I want to make sure we include biodiversity and water in the conversations. And then finally, I'd say this is going from an area of corporate affairs, where you're thinking about maybe messaging, branding, stakeholder engagement, still doing all that, to also thinking about profit and loss, owning a P&L. What products and services can you engage with your clients, with your customers, and to help them solve their sustainability problems? It is a huge, huge mind shift and a great leap forward for the topic.
And for the leaders that are building out the sustainability function within their companies, what are the initial steps you'd encourage them to take to really build that foundation for success?
Yeah, like, I mean, you can always start bottom up, top down. You can try in the middle and go out. Only you know what's right for your personality, your role in your organization. In my experience, it helps to go top down. There is a phrase used in ethics and compliance, which is a subject that sustainability can actually learn a lot about. If you don't know that as a topic, definitely worth a Google search and a read. In ethics and compliance, they talk about tone at the top. And I don't mean your CEO saying on social media that this is important to him or her. I mean the constant drumbeat from the CEO and all of his or her reports about this is important to the very lifeline of the company, what we sell, where we make our revenue from, and reflecting that in their daily communications and their policies. That's a great place to start. Take your CEO's vision. He and she probably writes extensively about that, especially in their annual report. In those same documents, in your town halls, you know, the part we all kind of tend to tune out on a little bit, listen in, write it all down, and map what you want to do to sustainability to that. You will get farther if you let the CEO's vision and roadmap plow the way ahead for you.
And then once the programs have been started, do you have any advice in particular on how to build momentum? Are there particular examples you can share of decisions that you've made in particular that you feel like were transformative for your organization?
Yeah, I mean, this is where you can go grassroots, right? This is where you can go bottom of the pyramid up. CEOs have a set of stakeholders they listen to, and all of those stakeholders will be different by company. There's one stakeholder group that is always the same: employees. Energize your employee base. If they are already energized and you are not engaging them, you could potentially be sitting on a powder keg, right? Worst case. At the very least, you're missing out on talent, right? On ideas. It is worth engaging in 100 town halls with the base of your employee pyramid, taking everyone's call to the extent you're able to manage the inflow, ignoring title, and really figuring out what employees are talking about, because so many of the best ideas will be coming from the front line. That is when the employees start talking back up, talking to their manager, raising questions in town halls. If you are new to the topic, or maybe you're not, you're just sitting in an organization where you feel like, oh, everyone's telling you how important this is, but no one's really funding it, then your employee base, getting them to take action and be vocal is the key.
And are there common roadblocks that sustainability leaders face in your experience? And do you have any particular advice for those that might be watching on how to mitigate or avoid those obstacles?
Yeah. Well, let me get a little controversial here just to make sure everyone's still paying attention, right? Whatever time it is of day for you, right? You chose to be here. You're volunteering your time with us, which means you probably care about the topic. You might even be passionate about it. Mm-hmm. That passion is probably also your biggest roadblock, right? The most common thread I see among sustainability people who are arguing their case is that they use too much passion. Now, like, look, I'm passionate. This is me being incredibly restrained, okay? But when you show your passion, you make it personal. And this isn't about you. This is about what you can do for the larger organization and proving that you know what needs to be done within that organization. When things fall apart is when we start talking about how passionate the CEO is, how much he or she cares, what your kids learned at school.
Now, as we think about scaling sustainability across a large global enterprise, it's clear that you need to gain buy-in from business unit leaders whose first priority might actually be sales or might be some other core metric and not environmental well-being. How do you win those folks over?
Well, again, I mean, I'll show my stripes, my old guard style. You can't expect them to care about environmental well-being. You can in their private life, but most people aren't in sustainability jobs. Most people were not hired to care about that. They were hired to care about procurement, accounting, public relations. Now, they might end up caring very much about what you say if you can talk about it in their terms, if you can show that it services your goal. And Adam, here's the real mindset difference I would suggest for listeners. Don't think that people don't care. The CARE word is irrelevant. Caring is not the problem. Topic, difference in sales versus corporate affairs is not the problem. The problem is time frame. That inherently, sustainability means seeing how things play out over time and have an effect on each other. Most people are working on a 24 hour to 1 week to maybe at best 3 months of the quarter timeline. If you have a conflict, if you are not making progress, don't think that someone cares more about their P&L. Think two things. One, I have to express this in terms of their sale. And two, what I should be arguing with them about is timeline.
Got it. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but similar question this time about the employees. How important is it for sustainability teams and functions to engage the employees? And if so, how do you think about the key steps to accomplishing this?
it is impossible to underestimate how important employees are. And I mentioned that word a couple of times, right? And of course, some of us call them crew members or team members, etc. Like, it is absolutely critical that you engage them for a couple of reasons, all of which we will go through. Like I said, if you're not, you're missing out on new ideas and talent. If you're not, you're missing out on a power base that could be in your corner. If you're not, you're kind of assuming they agree with you, and they might not, right? So be careful, because not everyone is necessarily gung-ho or from your political spectrum, right? So you might find you're off key, you're off tone. But mostly what we know is that the average person in the United States and in countries I focus on, like India, is increasingly focused on this in their personal life, and they're getting anxious about it, right? So when you're anxious and you have no control, you don't get good behavior change. What you as sustainability leaders are going for is positive, constructive behavior change that enhances your brand and your CEO's vision. Look, there's a reason of all the startups, of all the new companies I can choose to advise, that I chose Climate Club, right? Because they represent exactly what I'm talking about. This wasn't planned, it's not a plug. I'm telling you guys, the employee passion base needs to be educated, trained, and most of all, engaged, right? And if you need to put that in a business case for your own manager, just think about Scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 emissions are the largest part of almost any company's carbon footprint. That means they could also be your largest cost and liability, right? So use your employee base to reduce your Scope 3 emissions, business travel, purchasing, but it all starts with engaging them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, we talk about this all the time at Climate Club, that we think about these companies as these kind of brands, these iconic names, but realistically, they are collections of people making decisions independently and together. And the collective power of those either team members, workforce, employees, associates, however you want to refer to your people, is just truly extraordinary, and something that we're really excited to be on a journey with somebody like yourself as an advisor to help us as Climate Club work with leading companies today to drive that forward. You obviously have a tremendous amount of experience working within enterprise. We get to benefit from that, having you as an advisor to Climate Club. And I'm curious, kind of broadly, what are you seeing in the startup ecosystem that excites you most?
What am I seeing in the startup ecosystem that excites me most? Well, first of all, money, right? Okay, let's be realistic about the amount of attention that these well-deserving startups are finally seeing. So again, in the space a while, right? So 2008 economic crisis, sustainability is going to go away. More recently, COVID, administration change in the United States, COVID's going to go away. Administration change in sustainability is going to go away. Same thing in the UK, right? COVID going to go away. War going to go away. Great Resignation going to go away. Recession going to go away. You can play it on a loop. And so to see VCs recognizing startups for that, I'll say the types of VC and engagement that I'm most excited about is ones that engage your employee base for reasons I've been arguing for the past 20 minutes, right? And ones that are in the physical space, that are sequestering carbon, making electrification faster, or reinventing hydrocarbon fuels.
Amazing. So 2 last questions from me, and then we'll turn over and I'll call out some of those that have been submitted into the Q&A. First, are there certain key tools or capabilities that you see as critical for enterprises to be successful in implementing to achieve their sustainability goals?
Yeah, I mean, look, guys, there's a reason I went into software, right? You need it to do this. I work for Cognizant. We're software agnostic. There's so many great solutions there. I could talk to you about Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, SAP, Salesforce, Climate Club. it's not about me saying, oh, this is the right one. It's about you realizing that you can't do this on your own. You cannot do it in an Excel spreadsheet, right? So those are the two things you need to solve for. And you're gonna need two types of software, one that engages people and one that records your data. What of those solutions is right for you? That's where you get to network with your colleagues. Don't choose it alone, right? Create a committee, talk to your IT department, talk to your HR department. The more people you bring into the web when you're choosing your tools, the more buy-in you'll have when you invest in them. They'll be used, you'll see that ROI. 100,000 employees, well, if you're Cognizant, 100,000 employees, logged in at more normally sized companies, like 5,000 employees taking action with Climate Club, or SAP drawing directly from your procurement system. So you spend less time reporting and more time creating sustainable change.
That's fantastic advice. And I feel like we're living up to the billing of this being a masterclass, because I feel like I'm learning a tremendous amount as well. Last question from me, and then I'll dive into some of the Q&A questions that have been submitted. And feel free to continue to submit those if you haven't yet. Are there any emerging trends or predictions within corporate sustainability for 2023 that you think leaders should be aware of or focusing on this coming year?
Well, funny you should ask, Adam. This question I did prepare for, folks. Okay, so all kidding aside, I've been thinking a lot about this internally, externally, been watching a lot of videos, reading a lot of blog posts that ask exactly this question. And in preparing for this class, Adam, I thought, what would be the thing that would be of all these trends that would be most relevant to these audiences? The first is that data and reporting is not going to go away. Now, for someone like myself that might suffer a little bit of data and reporting exhaustion, this isn't necessarily good news. There's a lot of talk at conferences. How do you streamline reporting? We spend too much time on it, but we have to settle into the fact that it's here and we need to procure tools to get that data streamlined. The second is around the employee revolution, right? And yes, we've talked about this a lot. That's because you're going to be talking a lot about it in 2023, right? Get used to phrases like every job is a climate job, or my new favorite, the climate draft. I mean, just hearing those words, thinking about the amount of intelligence and excitement that will go to making people's lives better is a thrilling moment for all of us. So get educated, and then get your employee base taking action within the brand of the company, on brand for your company, with your products and services, so that you can show there's a productive way to address climate and sustainability. And then I would say third is the new role of the Chief Sustainability Officer. Okay? Gone are the days where you're the lone voice championing this, or you're simply looking at the company's environmental footprint. I think the new Chief Sustainability Officer is going to be a salesperson, right? And that doesn't mean the job is going to go to sales, or that you're immediately in competition with the sales guy for what you want to do. But sustainability is going to become about sales, selling your company's brand, selling your company's vision of sustainability, and finally selling the new products and services we're all going to need to transition to a low carbon economy.
This is great. And I feel like we could probably spend a full hour just on that topic alone, but in the interest of time, trying to stay on schedule for those that committed this 30 minutes with us. A bunch of fantastic questions have been submitted. Let me just call out a few that are really standing out. So Logan asked, as sustainability as an industry itself continues to evolve, how do you foresee sustainability departments being built in terms of the specific positions to form a team?
Well, first of all, they're getting bigger. That's the good news, right? This used to be a one-man shop, you wear many hats, yada, yada. So where the sustainability department sits depends on what industry you're in. So if you're in a manufacturing company, you might want to try and build up that sustainability department within your supply chain, right? If you're at the complete other opposite end of the spectrum in a branding department, you're going to want that to sit in brand. I've seen diversity and inclusion be born in, stay in, and succeed in HR. Other than that function, I generally like to see these departments more in the CEO's office if you can, the strategy office if you can, and if not there, the general counsel's office or the chief administrator's office.
Mm. And then in terms of specific roles that you see comprising that team itself, are there certain ones that stand out when you think about the kind of foundations or sequential order that you would build around?
Yeah, I would have someone on data and reporting. Not that, you don't want the organization to get the idea that you have one person just for your ESG report, but you're talking about kind of governance and efficacy of accuracy of claims. So I wouldn't think of that role as reporting, but of accuracy of claims. And then I would think of a role specifically in charge of a net zero journey or an absolute carbon reduction. And then as we have at Cognizant, a role specifically for engaging your employee base. Microsoft very famously has a role just in charge of their voluntary, I think their, volunteer green group.
Yeah. And I know Drew, who actually runs that group pretty well, and he's fantastic. So we'll try and do lightning round because we have about 2 minutes left. And I'll just call out a couple of these. So one would be, Nikki asked, how does the company's culture impact how successful you will be in embedding sustainability into the organization, which is obviously a core focus for us at Climate Club, is working with companies on that journey. What are the keys to success in embedding sustainability into the org?
Right. So, when you talk about culture, you're talking about what your leadership says, what is reflected in your policies, and what products and services you sell. So lightning round, figure out who writes your executive communications. They have someone write them, right? They're not doing it themselves. Become that person's best friend.
Right. Charlie asks, what are the main obstacles in people adopting sustainable behaviors, and a little bit about the technology to help them achieve those hurdles?
Yeah, so not knowing what matters, doesn't recycling matter or not, noise, confusion. Again, get a software. It doesn't have to be Climate Club, or it does, what the point is, you have a central place where people trust your brand enough to work for that brand, also are getting clear, unbiased answers about how this is relevant to your supply chain and your value chain.
Got it. And then we have a number of questions from a number of folks just on broader ESG. Any tips on either delivering ROI related to your ESG in a larger organization, and kind of combining two questions here, just thoughts on how it shifted as a result of the pandemic and its long-term staying power?
Long-term staying power, as long as we all need to eat and drink fresh water, it's there, right? This is how I put it. There's never been an economic decision made that hasn't assumed we're operating in a stable climate, right? So it's relevant. It's what we call a secular trend. ROI, your organization has a way that they measure profitability. They have a business case. Every organization has a template, probably called something like the business case template, right? And on that template, your finance department will tell you, we need to see a return on investment in 1 year, 2 years. Figure out what that is and make your idea fit into that to gain credibility.
Well, Sophia, this has been an extraordinary, true masterclass on sustainability. I'll speak on behalf of myself and all those that have been watching. We are deeply appreciative for your time, for the work that you do in the world. And again, this has been part of the Sustainability Leader Series that Climate Club is hosting. And this has been Sophia Mendelsohn sharing her wisdom. So thank you so much, Sophia.
Thanks, everyone.